Hello and welcome to the RationalFanz podcast. That is RationalFanz with the Z. This is the first podcast of the new year, new 2016, so we'd like to say Happy New Year to you and to all of your friends and family.
Nothing's going to be different.
Nothing.
Same podcast you love.
Can you believe it's been almost 3 weeks since we've had a very low-quality, low-budget podcast? I mean, it feels like just last year.
Actually, it's high budget, but low quality, so.
These microphones are good, people.
First off, I know we don't really want to talk about it, but we're just going to start off with bowl season. You know, the bowl committee, the playoff committee, excuse me, they were just absolutely terrible this year. They didn't give us a single good football game to watch over Christmas break. You know, during Christmas break, I just lay around and watch college football all the both weeks. But I couldn't do that. All the games were terrible.
Yeah, but is that the fault of the committee or the fault of the teams? You know, with college football, the only really bowl game that you care about is the one that your team is playing in. But sometimes there's some other good games along the way that you kind of want to catch up on. But nothing was extremely good this year. You know, you obviously had the Pinstripe Bowl, Duke and Indiana. That was a nail biter in the TCU Oregon game. That was a good one. But other than that, there's really no good games.
The committee tried their darndest. It's just, that's the way the cookie crumbles. And I think it's made worse and magnified by the fact that they had such low ratings for the college football playoff semifinal games on New Year's Eve, because I didn't watch them. I had better things to do than to sit around and watch two awful games being played. Because, as soon as I saw the halftime scores, I was uninterested. Maybe the Clemson-Oklahoma game was interesting at the half, but it turned into a laugher there at the end. And so it just wasn't appealing to me. I'm more of a casual college football fan. I'm more of an NFL guy. And, I don't care to tune in and waste time watching a blowout football game.
Of the 5 games that were on New Year's Day, 5 of the winners scored 40 or more points. And the closest game was Ohio State, Notre Dame at 44-28. All the other games, Tennessee beat Northwestern 45-6, Michigan, Florida 41-7, Stanford, Iowa 45-16, and Ole Miss over Oklahoma State 48-20. Not even close. Those are supposed to be the best matchups, your New Year's Day ones and your New Year's Eve ones, and those were some of the worst games that we saw the entire bowl season.
Oh, yeah, these bowl games are horrible, but, the one that makes me really mad is the Rose Bowl with Iowa and Stanford. How in the world do you not give Christian McCaffrey the Heisman this year? That's ridiculous. He had, almost 400 all-purpose yards that game? And Derrick Henry ends up with, 75 rushing yards against Michigan State? Are you kidding me? Are you sure that's not rigged? Oh, wait. Yes, it is.
He plays for Alabama.
Yep.
I think, I honestly would wish that they waited to present the Heisman until after the season, because players are still playing games and making their cases. If Derrick Henry comes out and lays an absolute stink bomb against Clemson in the national championship, people are going to say he was a fluke Heisman winner. But McCaffrey comes out and absolutely torches the Iowa defense. First play from scrimmage, he scores a touchdown on a catch across the middle. He's that versatile of a player, and if they waited to present the Heisman till the end of the season, I honestly think that he would be getting considered a little bit more.
Like last year, Zeke Elliott had some 700 yards in his last 3 games of the year, and 2 of those didn't even go into consideration because the committee picks it in early December. That doesn't really make any sense. It's supposed to be college football's best player, and the best players do the best in the best games, so it makes sense to me that you would wait till after the best games to determine who the best player is. And so, yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Derrick Henry laid a stinker against Michigan State. Michigan State still got destroyed. You tell me Derrick Henry's going to have 20 carries for 75 yards. I say Michigan State's going to win hands down. No, they stink. Alabama did a great job with their passing offense. Jake Coker, he actually looked like a half-decent quarterback. This is the first time this year where he's actually led the offense instead of dragging it behind him. So, Alabama, that's a scary thing when they can beat you with Derrick Henry and beat you through the air.
I think my problem with Derrick Henry winning the Heisman is the only reason he gets even average rushing yards is because they give it to him 40 times a game. He's just the workhorse running back. With Christian McCaffrey, he's going to get it 15, 20 times, and he's going to make the most out of those opportunities. But with Henry, you're going to give it to him 40 times, and if he gets 5 yards on every rush, that's 200 yards right there. That's the only reason he has so many yards.
Well, I mean, a 5-yard rush average is still ridiculous.
Well,
but like you're saying, even if he runs for only 3 yards a carry, which is kind of mediocre, he's still running for 120 yards in a game. And that's the difference between Derrick Henry and some of your other running backs in college football. They're not touching the ball as much because they don't have to carry their offense.
I see a lot of similarities between Derrick Henry, the way he plays, and Eddie Lacy and the way he plays. Eddie Lacy was good in college, and he was good for a couple years in the NFL. Let's just hope that Derrick Henry gets drafted by a team in a city that does not have a Golden Corral, because you don't want to end up, like Eddie Lacy in another respect that we're not going to mention here now. And so, I can see, we've been talking about it for weeks. We're already predicting that Derrick Henry is going to be a bust. And so it's going to be interesting to see if that actually pans out, just because he's an Alabama running back. And, the NFL has had bad luck with NFL running backs recently.
If you could give the Heisman to multiple players, you should give it to the Alabama offensive line. Because believe me, Derrick Henry is not as good a runner as he appears to be, but Alabama's offensive line is always the best, one of the best in college football, and they can open up huge holes that even Eddie Lacy could fit through. And that's just something that Derrick Henry has to give credit to his offensive line for. And really, the offensive line is the reason that Henry gets such a big rushing average, is because those holes are there for him.
Alabama running backs, like Evan said, there hasn't been a single good one in quite some time. Mark Ingram's kind of average. Trent Richardson, he was a big... And then you got Eddie Lacy, T.J. Yeldon. And T.J. Yeldon didn't have a bad season. It obviously wasn't good. But then you got Eddie Lacy, there's another one. Oh, well.
Oh, well, they all stink. But anyway, speaking of Alabama, they are facing Clemson this next Monday for the national championship. For a pick, I'm going to go with Clemson over Alabama. Ooh. Clemson's going to win that game. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say 31-28. They're going to prove all the haters wrong. Come on, take down Saban. Let's go.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with Nate. I'm taking Clemson and Deshaun Watson. The running game that Clemson has, the option running game, is just going to be too much, I think, for an Alabama defense that isn't as good as we've seen in the past. And, that defense of Clemson, that's really been their trademark all season. So I think they're going to be able to make the plays down the stretch and win this one. In a close one, but no less. Clemson's going to cap off the undefeated season.
As much as it pains me, I think that Alabama is going to win 35-14.
Oh.
Every time that we see Alabama come up against the best, the brightest, the next, the now, Alabama always wins. Every time that they play Dak Prescott and Mississippi State, Dak Prescott has a terrible game. Whenever they play LSU, they shut down Leonard Fournette. And so I haven't seen a whole lot from Clemson that could make me think that they're even a better team than Michigan State. And Michigan State just got their butts handed to them. I think they're going to do better than Michigan State did. I just don't see any reason to pick Clemson over Alabama at this point. What I saw out of them in the semifinal was really scary. I don't want Alabama to win, but I think they're going to.
I think I'm with you on that one, Evan. There's nothing that I see that Clemson can maybe exploit in Alabama's offense or defense, so get Clemson the win. But if Alabama wins, Nick Saban, this glorious college career, is he done in college, though? And does he make a move up to the NFL? He's won so many college titles. He has nothing left to prove in college. Does he go to not the Colts anymore, but does he go to another NFL team?
Well, yes. This is a good question that will lead into our next subject of head coaching vacancies in the NFL. So, yes, as we all know, this last Monday was Black Monday, where all the coaches get fired. Well, a lot of coaches were fired Sunday right after their game. But anyway, going through the list of vacancies, well, first we got the Giants. Tom Coughlin just stepped down. Yeah, whatever. He got fired. But he just stepped down. We'll see that. Cleveland Browns firing Mike Pettin. Yeah, want to say something, Rhett?
Yeah, about those two first firings that you mentioned, why would you get rid of Tom Coughlin? Like, I understand that he's not always the most conventional coach and he's really old, but he has won 2 Super Bowls, I believe, in New York, right? 2 of them?
Yeah.
Both over the Patriots.
Yeah.
That is, I don't know. He's had a couple of down seasons, and, you know, I think honestly the NFL has become way too cutthroat. You know, for Mike Pettin, for the Browns, he said it, and he was quoted as saying, there's something to the effect of it's a cutthroat league. No one wants to hear that it takes time, which is what the Browns need. They need time to develop a team. And, you know, with the Browns not giving their coaching position to a guy for multiple years, you can't establish a consistent, you know, like a consistent system. So, you know, that's really hurting the Browns, I think, is not giving coaches a chance. Pettin has a great mind, and I think he could make a head coach, but Jimmy Haslam is not the greatest owner in the NFL, let's just say that.
You know, and a note on Tom Coughlin. I was surprised when I saw this stat. Tom Coughlin has missed the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. And the one year that he did make the playoff, he won the Super Bowl. But, you know, he's coached for 20-some-odd years, and he's missed the playoff 13 times. I heard Stephen A. Smith, well, he was yelling about this yesterday because that's what he does. And, yeah, like he's had like 3 straight 6-10 seasons before he got kicked out of Jacksonville when he was the coach there. And that's kind of what you saw here. You know, as great as much as we love Tom Coughlin because he's beaten Bill Belichick twice, and we will forever be in his favor for that. We will forever be indebted to you, Tom Coughlin. But he hasn't been the greatest coach, honestly. The players love him. Everybody loves him. He's a great guy. It's just as an NFL coach, hasn't really been that successful. Take away his 2 Super Bowl years, and what is he? You know, Mooch from NFL Network that spews his garbage just because he made the playoffs once with the 49ers? I don't know.
Yeah, I think at his age, it's time for him to retire and step away from the game of football and right off into the sunset.
Some of the other open coaching jobs this season are the San Francisco 49ers. You know, same thing with the Browns. Tom Sula just came in. He gets the worst roster in probably all of the entire NFL.
He didn't have anything to work with.
Yeah.
So many different players retiring, leaving.
When your 2 quarterback options are Colin Kaepernick or Blaine Gabbert, you know it's going to be a long season.
Hey, you know, with all these head coaching options, which we'll get through in a second, I'd say the San Francisco 49ers is probably the worst possible destination.
Oh, yeah.
You know, their roster is depleted. I mean, you know, they're not going to be competitive for at least another 3 years. They got to totally rebuild this team. So, yeah, continue the list.
Philadelphia Eagles just fired Chip Kelly. I'd say that's probably the best open job at the moment.
Yeah.
Probably.
And then you got the Miami Dolphins.
I'd put the Giants up towards the top of that opening, too, because they've got a quarterback who knows what he's doing, and he's got weapons on offense. So it's not like a terrible situation in New York.
Yeah, and a team that, you know, take off 2 minutes would have been 10-2 at one point. So...
And then you got the Tennessee Titans, and those are the coaches who have been fired so far this season. And I think we need to take a look at Jeff Fisher. I think he absolutely needs to get fired. I remember 4 or 5 weeks ago, I made a joke. I was like, Jeff Fisher and the St. Louis Rams somehow magically gravitate themselves towards an 8-8 season, and they were like 3-7, and you guys all laughed at me. Because you said there was no way they would get back to 8-8. Well, unfortunately, they didn't because they lose to the freaking 49ers. Who would have thought? So they go 7-9, but Jeff Fisher is just so average. Like, he's not bad. He won't have a 4-12, 5-11 season. He's 8-8, 7-9.
If there were an Andy Dalton scale for coaches, right smack dab at 0 would be Jeff Fisher. Every year, he struggles in the middle of the season. He starts out hot. You're thinking the Rams could be good. Then they drop 4 stinkers in a row. Then everybody's clamoring for him to be fired. He puts in some useless backup quarterback that gets a concussion, leaves him in for 2 more plays to, go out there and get CTE. And then they beat the Seahawks at the end of the year, and they finish 8-8. And it makes you think, maybe this Jeff Fisher guy, maybe he's the answer. Maybe there's a little hope. And then the next year, starts out hot. Then they lay 4 stinkers in a row.
Heard that one before.
It just keeps going on and on with Jeff Fisher. He's riding off of his Super Bowl season. It's the only reason he's still a head coach. He's the most inept head coach that has nothing to do with the Browns organization in the NFL.
If the Rams get to move back to Los Angeles, which quite personally I think they're the only ones that should because that's where they're originally from, they should just overhaul everything. Coaching staff, remove Jeff Fisher, redo everything, go back to being the Los Angeles Rams and make the people in LA happy, which you can't do unless you get rid of Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, that whole LA situation will be awfully interesting to see this offseason. Will a team actually move there this next season? I don't know. That's still up for debate. But a team will move there eventually. Yeah, so we got the Rams, Chargers, and Raiders all as candidates for that. One coach that still might be fired is Jim Caldwell in Detroit. Mid-season, they're like 1-7, and everyone's like, oh, trade Matthew Stafford. Get rid of Calvin Johnson. We already got rid of Sue. Now kill Jim Caldwell or whatever. But I think a lot of it still depends on the GM they're going to hire in the near future, probably in the next week. But yeah, I still think Jim Caldwell's toast. One person they should consider for a head coaching job, though, is their offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter.
Jim Bob Cooter.
Awesome name, so hilly Billy.
Every time that I watched the Lions play this year, after they, I think they promoted Jim Bob Cooter. I don't know if they just hired.
I think they did.
Every time I watched him play, the announcers, the play-by-play guys would say Jim Bob Cooter like every 10 seconds. Man, Jim Bob Cooter just drew up the best play. Jim Bob Cooter did this or that. And it was looking like for a while that Jim Bob Cooter was going to, get himself a head coaching job here this next year. But, they kind of fizzled out towards the end. So I think he's going to stay in Detroit as their offensive coordinator for this year. But if they can turn things around next year, I'm sure there's a lot of teams that would love to have Jim Bob Cooter. Heck, he might even get to go ruin his career with the Browns for all we know.
Before we go to the actual NFL playoff preview, let's talk about the move to L.A. The Rams have filed for their move to L.A. How many times have they moved back and forth to L.A. from L.A., to L.A. from L.A.? They're just spending so much money moving.
Let's see. I believe they started in Cleveland. Then they went to Los Angeles and then St. Louis. I think they've only moved to and then from LA once. I know they were the Cleveland Rams for a while, but
there's been so many teams to move to LA and then back.
That's the Raiders. The Raiders have moved like every 10 years in their history.
They did apply for relocation as well as the Chargers.
I don't know why they moved so many freaking times.
The Raiders moved so many times back in the DAY because Al Davis could never make up his mind. And he's like, all right, we're here in Oakland. And then they say, you guys aren't allowed to move back to Los Angeles. And then he'd say, screw you, we're moving back to L.A. So he'd pick up the team and push them to L.A. And then they'd go back to Oakland and it just keep going on and on.
Well, yeah, an interesting twist on the story, I guess. The Rams owner, his name escapes me right now, but
Cranky.
Yeah,
Stan, I think it's Stan Crank or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, he told everyone this last week that he's going to build an NFL stadium in LA, whether the NFL approves of a team right now or not. And if he really wants the Rams in LA, I think that's kind of a good strategy because you're going to have a venue sitting there, the NFL and Roger Goodell is going to be salivating over like, oh man, we got to get a team in there. But yeah, he said he's going to host he's going to have concerts in there too, whatever. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a team in LA the next 5 years. And I'd say the top candidate right now is the Los Angeles Rams just because their owner's so adamant about getting there. And the Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis stinks.
It's terrible.
We can reminisce now about the bizarre shop vac fire. Those were the days. All right, one last note that I want to make about NFL head coaching. It's that it seems that the worst head coaching jobs open are the ones with volatile and inept ownership. I think at the top of the list of volatile and inept ownership, you would have to put the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they ousted Jim Harbaugh in a power struggle, and they just put Jim Tom Sula, the yes man, who was destined to fail from the beginning. And then you have the Browns, who, haven't been able to right the ship since they, reintegrated in Cleveland. And so if the ownership is bad, then your team's probably going to be bad. And that's why I'm surprised the Colts didn't at least make some heads roll. I mean, they fired like their tight end coach or something. But, the Chuck Pagano, Ryan Grigson, Jim Irsay trio, it's toxic. It's not going to work. Something's got to give. If we could fire both Jim Irsay and Ryan Grigson and keep Chuck Pagano, that would be great. But unfortunately, you can't do that. So, and that's all I'm going to say about the Colts head coaching situation.
Now it's time to actually preview the NFL playoffs. In the AFC, the Broncos somehow magically took the 1 seed, followed by the Patriots, Bengals, Texans, Chiefs, and then the Steelers. And then you got the Panthers, Cardinals, Vikings, Redskins, Packers, and then Seahawks rounding out the top 6.
Seahawks are the best 6 seed that we've seen in the playoffs in a long time. They looked extremely good against Arizona on Sunday, and I honestly think at this point they're going to end up in the NFC Championship game again. Well, I don't know if they'll get to the Super Bowl or not, but they're such a hot team right now that I think that they are the team to be in the NFC playoffs right now, despite Carolina being 15-1.
For Seattle to get to the NFC Championship, they have to beat Carolina, though.
It'll happen.
Carolina beat Seattle in Seattle, but now they have to go to Carolina to play. I don't see any reason why Carolina doesn't beat Seattle.
Hey, whoa. Hold on there, little man. First, they got to go through my Minnesota Vikings, all right? I know all week you guys are like, why'd the Vikings beat the Packers to win the NFC North, which I'm very proud of. They shouldn't have done that. They should have tanked.
Party like it's 09.
Beat then they could tank and play the Packers again. Okay, no. That's not how that works. In the NFL playoffs, you always go for the home field advantage, no matter where it is or who you're playing. Because quite honestly, anything can happen in the playoffs. 07 Patriots? Oh, and by the way, the weather forecast in Minnesota, wind chill, -7? I think that might affect the Seahawks a little. Not saying that the Vikings are going to win, but I think it's going to be closer than a lot of us think.
If the Vikings win, then they have to go to Arizona. And looking at it in the big picture, if they can beat Seattle, it probably would be best that they do, because if they were the 6th seed, they would have had to gone to Carolina. And looking at the big picture, it probably would have been best if they win the NFC North.
Yeah, but, Green Bay gets a cushy trip to Washington. And, as much as we love to, have mouth vomit over Kirk Cousins, he's Kirk Cousins. He had good numbers, but, he's still Kirk Cousins. This is the same Washington Redskins team that had that god-awful Monday night game against the Cowboys where Deshaun Jackson had the most inept fumble we've ever seen. And this is still a team that's capable of that. They're 9-7 for a reason, and that's because they're just slightly above average. And so I'd take a game over the Redskins, over about anything. And I know that wasn't possible for the Vikings, but, good for you, Packers. A team that you can beat before getting destroyed by an actual football team. Good for you.
Mason's going to hate me for saying this, but the 2 best teams in the playoffs are the Cardinals and the Seahawks. No doubt about it. Probably Seahawks and then Cardinals, number 1, number 2, because the Seahawks right now, Russell Wilson is playing some great football. Ever since Jimmy Graham went out, quite honestly, he stepped up his game, and the Seahawks made the playoffs as the wild card, but I think they're way more dangerous than a 6th seed. And Arizona, they are a team that delivers a great defense, and Carson Palmer leads that offense. And I honestly think the best matchup to see in the playoffs would be Cardinals-Seahawks, if it would so happen.
Oh yeah, that could very well happen. But since week 8, I've been thinking, oh man, the Cardinals, they look awesome right now. Carson Palmer and his receivers are clicking. The defense, they've had a ton of sacks this year. They put so much pressure on the opposing quarterback. But the Week 17 game against the Seahawks, man, that was a clunker. What in the world was that, Arizona? I think the loss of Tyrann Mathieu in the Cardinals secondary might be a little bit bigger than we think. He's a good safety, but he's the guy who really gels that secondary together, if you want to say that. The Cardinals, they just got to start running in with the ball with David Johnson again, because that guy's an underrated weapon, and he might be a good fantasy pickup next year. But that would be an interesting matchup.
2 interesting points here. Back to Evan about the Redskins. Redskins are 6-2 at home, so they're obviously much better at home than they are on the road, and they get this home game against the Green Bay Packers. I'm not saying they're going to win, and they more than likely won't, but it's just interesting the difference between their home record and away record. And then the Arizona Cardinals, past 2 games, they've had home games against the Green Bay Packers, Seattle Seahawks. They very well could have 4 home games, Packers, Seahawks, Packers, Seahawks. They destroyed the Packers, and then they got crushed by the Seahawks. But if Seahawks and Packers win, they could very well have those 4 games in a row.
We're missing a golden opportunity here. Talk about how bad New England stunk in the last 6 weeks. They're 2-4. Do you see how bad their offense was in Miami? Like, they tried to play, slow tempo, control the football, and they were terrible at it. Tom Brady had an awful game, the worst game he's had in recent memory. And, the only reason that we don't hear more about it is because their fan base is so good at making excuses for their team's poor play. Like, every time that any other team, the Broncos or the Colts, has a down year, has a down week, the Patriots seem like the first to jump on the ha-ha, kiss the rings, hashtag goat crap. But then whenever they're playing bad, it's injuries. It's, they're losing their weapons. Welcome to the NFL. So is every other team.
Deal with not having Andrew Luck for half the season, Patriots. Come on.
It's funny. I can't wait to see him without Tom Brady. I cannot wait.
It's going to happen soon. He's getting up there in age, and he's not looking as sharp as he once was.
And I know I'm a bitter Colts fan, but I still can't wait to see that.
The 2 Patriots wins have come against the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans.
One of those is a playoff team.
They lost to Denver, Philadelphia, the Jets, and the Dolphins. All 4 of which are pretty mediocre. Well, except for the Broncos.
And the Jets.
The Jets are pretty mediocre.
Dude, they almost made the playoffs.
Okay, the Jets were actually kind of good this year.
They were good this year.
They just choked at the end.
Ryan Fitzpatrick choked at the end. Literally at the end.
Losing to the Eagles and the Dolphins, there is no excuse for that. That's just absolutely horrible.
Hey, no, I thought, Ndamukong's one hit on Tom Brady? That was horrible. I thought Brady's legs were going to fall off. But anyway... it all started with their first loss of the season when they play at Denver. Something was really off in that game. Like I've mentioned in the past, I think it has a lot to do with their offense. They're a dink and dunk, let's get a bunch of yak offense. Oh, hey, Brady's numbers look good all of a sudden. That's what the Patriots have run that. And Tom Brady's done it so efficiently, they can get away with it. But, when they're missing playmakers like they are now, and they're out of sync, it really affects their offense. But yeah, how in the world did the Broncos get the 1 seed? They're probably like the worst 1 seed in like the last 15 years or something. The Broncos are not that good. And Brock Osweiler got benched for Manning or whatever that was. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, but if they start Manning, they're not going anywhere.
Going into last week, the Broncos had any playoff range from the 1 seed to completely missing the playoffs as a whole. They could have gone 10-6 and missed the playoffs. The AFC, all 6 teams are within 2 games of each other. I don't think I've ever seen that in any season in the NFL that I've watched. It's 2. The Broncos are.
It's 3.
Texans.
Texans are 9-7.
That's-
Denver's
that's-
12-4.
Texans don't count.
Texans don't count. But I don't think of it. I don't think I've ever seen that really.
Yeah, it's the AFC. It's just a lot of pretty good teams. And I think that, I would take pretty much any NFC team over any AFC team this year. Whether that's going to happen in the Super Bowl or not, I don't know. It probably will, because I think right now the 3 best teams are the Panthers, Cardinals, and Seahawks, and obviously they're all NFC teams. And there's no one AFC team that really, lights my fire and makes me think this is a team that could win the Super Bowl.
Maybe Kansas City, sitting on a 10-game winning streak right now.
Maybe.
They are. It's the best thing that you can do for your team going into the playoffs is be hot. There's no hotter team right now than Kansas City. No doubt about
That's
it.
true.
Pittsburgh, they have the weapons. We've seen them do this before, make the playoffs kind of with a mediocre record and make a great run. So honestly, I think the best team that has a shot to win the Super Bowl from the AFC is either Kansas City or Pittsburgh at the 5 and 6 seed.
The 2 wild card teams. Wow.
See, no, I'm kind of, excuse me, I'm kind of the opposite of that. I'm not a huge Chiefs or Steelers fan. Or, let me rephrase that. The Chiefs, the problem I have with them is Alex Smith. He's a dink and dunk quarterback, and he doesn't have the ability to make those big plays that you may need at the end of games,
Neither
especially
does
in the
Teddy
playoffs.
Bridgewater.
Hey, shut up. Anyway, shut up. With the Chiefs, what was it like? 2 weeks ago, they barely beat the Browns and Johnny Manziel. That doesn't inspire confidence. It was at Kansas City too. I think they're going to lose to the Texans this weekend. Quite honestly, that's my upset pick.
Okay.
But as for the Steelers too, they kind of clunked their way into the playoffs too. They lost to the Ravens, and their passing offense hasn't really looked all that great in the last couple weeks. And the Bengals choke all the time in the playoffs, and they're probably going to miss Andy Dalton this week. But yeah, that Steelers-Bengals matchup will be interesting to see if the Steelers can get their pass game back in the sync. And, missing D'Angelo Williams, too, or if they are, that's going to hurt them, too.
Let's talk about the Jets' playoff collapse here for a second. The Jets needed 1 win or a Steelers loss to get into the playoffs. And in the most Jets way possible, they missed the playoffs, losing to the Bills, and then the Steelers beat the Browns. So now the Steelers 10-6, who honestly I would much rather trust in the playoffs than the Jets. The Steelers make the playoffs, and the Jets get to sit at home and watch it on their TV.
I would much rather see the Steelers than the Jets. Football corrected itself. Thank you for keeping the Jets out of the playoffs football. Because, the Jets were going to get they're going to get they would have been trashed by the Bengals, I honestly think. Ben Roethlisberger, he has the ability to run an explosive offense, but surprisingly, he's not doing that right now. It could change, but you'd think he'd be putting up these flashy numbers as great as Antonio Brown has been. I looked at his stats, 21 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He stunk when he's played. And so, that doesn't inspire confidence. So, I really wish that Andy Dalton was back, because I think that the Bengals, they'd have a great shot at winning the AFC with Andy Dalton. It's funny. The one player that everybody thought was a liability for their team turned out to be the glue that was holding the Bengals together. And so I don't think that they have a shot with A.J. McCarron. They might get past the Steelers, but you're not going to beat the Patriots or the Broncos. So, yeah, that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch.
I think this year the Bengals lose once again in the first round of the NFL playoffs. With A.J. McCarron as their starting quarterback, you can't really blame it on Andy Dalton for being so inept.
I mean, you can try. I'm sure there's a way you could.
But I think they lose again. I mean, the Steelers have one of the most high-powered offenses in the NFL, minus a running back who's actually good.
Yeah, I think that Pittsburgh is playing under their capabilities right now. With all of the weapons that Ben Roethlisberger has at his disposal, I'm really surprised, like Evan said, that he didn't put up better numbers. They have such a good offense, but they haven't played like it. They have the pieces there, but they just haven't been able to use them very well this season. So we'll see how Pittsburgh fares in the first round of the playoffs. I think if they can rebound, they're going to be the team to beat.
The last time that the Bengals won a playoff game was in January 1990, and then A.J. McCarron was born 8 months later. When your quarterback wasn't alive the last time you won a playoff game, I think you're due. And so I think that the Bengals, it's possible for A.J. McCarron to play just good enough to beat the Steelers. I think that maybe the Bengals get a wild card win. Maybe, just maybe. Give them a 51% chance to win this game just because they're at home.
Andy Dalton did have his calves removed, so they're working on getting him back. They're planning on starting McCarron. So if McCarron can get them past Pittsburgh and get McCarron back in the divisional games, then that is going to be a huge plus for the Bengals.
Steelers could go sign a running back off of free agency. I mean, I don't know how often NFL teams do that, sign a running back the week of their game.
It's risky. It's really risky.
I mean, it's not like there's any good running backs out there.
I have sources that tell me that Trent Richardson's still floating out, somewhere in space, waiting to be picked up by an NFL team.
I'm pretty sure he's disguised in Las Vegas right now, actually.
Yeah, you can't see him through the Burger King visor.
Ray Rice is still out there, though. I mean,
That's true.
Ray Rice isn't a bad running back.
He hasn't played in forever, though, so I don't think you throw him out there and expect much.
That's true. I think I would take a chance with Ray Rice, honestly. He's a great running back. He hasn't played. I mean, if he's been staying fit the whole time that he's been off.
How interesting would it be? You've got an NFC North matchup between the Bengals and the Steelers, and then Ray Rice, who used to play for an NFC North team, comes in and plays for the Steelers. That would be so much NFC North in one matchup. I would hate it. I hate the NFC North. Or AFC North, excuse me.
AFC North. But, come on, really? You sign Ray Rice, people already hate you because you're the Steelers. Now they're going to hate you even more. Ray Rice. Yeah, Michael Vick. Yeah, what the heck? What's going on,
Pittsburgh?
Their
starting quarterback isn't exactly innocent either.
That's true. Ben Roethlisberger's a punk. But,
Schmo.
Yeah,
Steelers fans all over complained when they signed Michael Vick, not completely forgetting that they had Ben Roethlisberger.
Exactly. We don't want a dogfight. Oh, PETA. Oh, okay. All right. Ben Roethlisberger.
So what's adding another
At
convict?
least he doesn't fight women. I mean, I'd take a dog fighter over a woman fighter every day.
Exactly.
What's adding another convict to the list of 3 or 4 convicts already on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster?
Pick up Johnny Manziel.
I think it's kind of fun to reminisce about our preseason Super Bowl predictions now that we've seen the whole. We can lament
Eagles
and go, burn some incense at the altar of our Colts. Colts
right at the
Super
feet of
Bowl
Ryan
predictions.
Grigson.
Yeah, or we can burn him instead. I'd pick Colts Packers. Obviously, the Packers are still alive. Obviously, the Colts are not. The Packers are not going to make the Super Bowl. So my prediction was, if I was going to make a prediction now, I would probably have to go. I'm going to say Panthers Patriots just because the Broncos. I don't love them. And then the Panthers win by like 25 in the Super Bowl.
I don't remember who I picked from the NFC. Did I pick the Seahawks?
I think you picked.
I feel like I picked the Seahawks.
I think you picked the Seahawks.
See that pick's looking pretty good right now. So I'm gonna stick with the Seahawks from the NFC, and I'm gonna go ahead and take. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and take Kansas City from the AFC. I'm going Kansas City. I think Alex Smith and all of his mediocre glory is going to be able to get him to the Super Bowl, where Seattle wins for the second time in 3 years.
Your picks cannot ever be as bad as Nate's Super Bowl pick, having the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl.
And now they fired their head coach.
Well, that was Chip Kelly's fault. And hey, I did pick the Patriots.
That's true.
But anyway, looking at the playoffs now, I'm redoing my pick. I'd probably still stick with the Patriots in the AFC. I think the Broncos, for whatever reason, they'll still end up in the AFC Championship game. but I think they'll lose to the Patriots. In the NFC, I say that the Cardinals get rid of their funk on offense and they make it to the Super Bowl. So Patriots, Cardinals.
Now, here's a question for you guys. Before you make your predictions, Mason, I'm going to make you hold on a little bit. But the Broncos don't know who they're going to start. So do you think that they're going to go with Osweiler or Manning, who hasn't exactly been great in the playoffs?
Osweiler is unpredictable. I mean, he ran probably the worst Broncos offense we've seen all year against the Chargers here in Week 17. I know, 3 of those turnovers weren't really his fault, maybe 4 of them. But even still, the offense looked out of sync without him. And as soon as you throw Peyton Manning back in there, who really knows how to run an offense, he didn't have huge passing numbers. He threw some great passes. They had a lot of zip on him, surprisingly. And the way that they ran that running offense when he came back in, the audibles, calling out blitzers, identifying where they're coming from, that's something that you're not going to get from Brock Osweiler that you will get from Peyton Manning. Brock Osweiler is just underexperienced. And I think that whoever they put, Osweiler or Manning, they're going to get to the AFC Championship game and lose to the Patriots. Either way, that's going to happen. So, take your pick. Manning could collapse at any moment, and Osweiler could, just start stinking at any moment. So it's kind of a crapshoot.
I think I'm with you on that one. I don't think there's a clear-cut winner for the quarterback job. Although I think they're going to lose first round of the divisional round of the playoffs. So I think during the off season, the coaches will be like, "Why didn't we start the other quarterback? We really suck. We made the wrong move."
Hey, well, you know what? I think they'll be good with Manning as long as he continues to take his HGH.
I think Peyton Manning's role with the Broncos right now should really be to groom Brock Osweiler for the future, because we all know Peyton Manning doesn't have much left in him. So while being with the Broncos, he needs to help them get Osweiler ready, because I think Osweiler has enough of the characteristics to be the next quarterback for the Broncos long term, but he does have a little bit of work, like you said, Evan, calling out blitzes, recognizing that kind of stuff. That's stuff that Manning can help him learn, and I think that's what Manning will be best for with the Broncos from here on out, is helping Osweiler develop into a good quarterback in the NFL.
Yep. But I'd actually go with Osweiler. The debate basically comes down to, well, with Osweiler, you have the arm talent, you don't have the brains. With Manning, you don't have the arm talent, but you have the brains.
So if you combine them, you get the perfect quarterback?
Yes.
Okay.
You get Tom Brady. But, yeah, as of now, I'd go with Brock Osweiler, just because I think he gives you more of a chance to make bigger plays, I suppose you could say.
I think in the NFL playoffs, though, you need the brains, because NFL defenses are really trying to pick your offense apart. And if you don't have some brains behind the offensive line at the quarterback, I think you just get eaten alive in the playoffs.
Whoever you pick, there's no going back, especially if you pick Osweiler, because if it's possible for Osweiler to go out there, throw a couple bad passes, and then lose his job again, that's going to mess with his mind. And so you have to be 100%. This is our guy. We're confident that he can lead us into – we're confident he can win us a Super Bowl. And that's the attitude that you have to win. You have to have, because you're the number 1 seed. That alone gives you great odds to make the Super Bowl. And so I think that whatever they do, they have to do it with all of their confidence, because if they don't, that's really going to hurt them.
Is it time for me for my Super Bowl preview prediction?
Yes, Mason.
All right. I had the Patriots and Packers in the Super Bowl, the best Super Bowl pick on this entire panel.
He's just going to give us a bunch of mouth vomit here.
He's going to say, I'm going to change them, the Packers, to the Panthers.
The Panthers are the greatest team since the
greatest
ever,
show on turf.
ever.
Homer pick, Homer, blah, 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 Homer, Cam Newton, Homer, dab.
Had I picked the Panthers in the preseason, you guys all probably would have laughed at me and called me a homer.
We're still laughing at you for the Packers pick.
Packers pick isn't a bad pick still.
Hey.
Yes, it is.
That's the only thing keeping me respectable right now.
I could pick the Packers right now, and I wouldn't see any problem with it.
You'd be wrong.
Just hurry up and make your pick.
I think he just did. He's not changing.
No. Steelers, Panthers.
What?
Steelers, Panthers.
Homer pick.
How was that?
See, I think that Steelers gonna stink in the playoffs, but whatever, we'll see.
I don't think Carolina's as good as their 15-1 record says they are. They are the worst 15-1 team I've ever seen.
You know, I think that they have issues. They're not a perfect team. Their defense, their secondary. Josh Norman is great. Charles Tillman is hurt. Cortland Finnegan stinks. And so, that's a weakness that, can be exploited. And they still, even as great as their receivers have done in replace of Kelvin Benjamin, still they don't have that one great go-to guy outside of Greg Olsen, and that's still another weakness. The Panthers aren't perfect, and they're the hands-down favorite by no means. I could see them, if they played the Cardinals or the Seahawks 10 times, they would win 5 out of 10 times, I would say. Mm-hmm. So it's take your pick out of the top 3, Panthers, Cardinals, Seahawks in the NFC.
I'd probably have to agree with you on that one, but the Panthers' offense is number 1 in NFL scoring this year, averaging 31.2 points a game. Even without a star number 1 receiver, that's really good having Greg Olsen and Ted Ginn as your 2 main receivers.
I thought they'd be awful this year without Kelvin Benjamin. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine how good they would be. Like, I think, honestly, that he is, like, the missing piece for the Panthers to make them, like, a great team. And, I think it would have been a scary season if they had Kelvin Benjamin. I think they would be the hands-down favorite with him. But, without him, it's wide open in the NFC, and it's really anybody's playoffs.
Looking ahead to next season, though, the Panthers don't lose any big-name free agents. I mean, you can franchise tag Josh Norman, or if you re-sign him. But then, like, your next best free agent that you're going to lose is Mike Tolbert. And they get Kelvin Benjamin back. So everybody returns on both sides of the offense and defense. They're going to be even scarier next year than they are this year.
Well, yeah, but what if, Cam Newton, dies while dabbing?
What if he, gets in another car crash and doesn't walk away this time?
Okay, never mind. That's kind of disturbing. But, the key for the Panthers... the key for the Panthers is, just get the run game going. That's really what's been churning this offense. And I think if they do that, then, yeah, they have a shot at making the Super Bowl. So,
Jonathan Stewart's going to be healthy come divisional round, so their run game will be absolutely great come divisional round.
I was going to talk about my car crash Cam Newton theory, but I don't think I need to do that right now. Maybe I will. All right, so Cam Newton, he has his car crash, and now he's playing great. I think that he will get into another car crash, and then he will stop playing great. It's like, when somebody goes cross-eyed, when they fall in a well or something, then they get kicked by a mule, and then their eyes go back again, like in a Christmas Vacation. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Have you ever seen Rookie of the Year? Okay, well, in the movie, this kid, he slips and falls and, breaks his arm. But when he breaks it, he can throw 100 miles an hour, so the Cubs sign him. And then he slips and falls on a baseball in the game, and he can't even hit the plate anymore. It's gonna be like that with Cam Newton.
So we're done with the NFL here.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. Let's turn to college basketball. We've got just a couple minutes here. Monday night, 1 team versus the number 2 team in the nation. Probably one of the best games of the season, probably without a doubt. Triple overtime. Kansas beats Oklahoma. Buddy Hield, 46 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Absolutely has a monster game.
Don't they play, 5-minute overtimes, I think?
Yeah.
Well, when you end up playing a 65-minute game, the chances of scoring 46 points just keep going up. But, yeah, it was definitely an impressive performance. And this is one of the most uncertain college basketball seasons that I remember experiencing. And there's really nobody that's a clear-cut, separation from the rest. Last year it seemed like it was Kentucky, but this year Kentucky just doesn't look as good. And Kansas is up there at the number 1 seed right now, or rank right now, and I think North Carolina is going to be up there towards the end of the season, and so is Duke, and Kentucky might come around. But I think honestly this is going to be one of the most surprising and shocking college basketball tournaments that we've ever seen. And while I don't think it's going to happen, I think if a 16 seed was going to be a 1 seed, it would be this year.
I think that college basketball has gotten a lot more exciting in no small part because of the new 30-second shot clock. There was no reason that the shot clock needed to be 35 seconds. I think shaving those extra 5 seconds off has really picked up scoring, especially in the ACC. Let's see if I can remember this correctly. They had it on Bleacher Report that, like, in the last 5 years or so, they've had a total of 2 ACC teams average 80 points a game. There's, like, 6 ACC teams this year averaging 80 points per game.
Wow.
So just in the ACC, you can see how that new shot clock is affecting the season. I mean, we'll see at the end of the year overall how much of an effect it has, but I can really tell the game is a lot more exciting. I mean, you still do sometimes have those, like, 50 to 48 games, or we just saw Indiana beat Wisconsin 59-58 yesterday. But I think that the game's a lot more exciting, especially to the casual viewer that's just flipping through channels. He's a lot less likely to turn it because nobody scored for 10 minutes.
You don't think that 5 seconds off of a shot clock would make that much of a difference, but it makes a huge impact on the game. And I think what the main point behind the rule changes this year was that we want to speed up the game and make it a little bit faster, and they've definitely done that by just making some small adjustments here and there. Like you said, Evan, it's made college basketball more exciting to watch.
The shot clock change has been something great for college basketball this season, but filling out the brackets this year is going to be so tough.
It's going to be even more guessing than normal.
I normally just...
I don't know how I'm going to be able to do it. I'm not usually good when it's easy to predict, and so this year's going to be terrible.
I think I got like 8 games right last year, so yeah, that's how good I am.
I
at
spend
filling
all
them out.
my time watching college basketball. I fill out my bracket, and what do you know? I'm dead last in the bracket pool. I don't know how that happens. I spend all my time watching college basketball. Who knows? Before we go, any closing thoughts, Evan, before we wrap up?
This whole Peyton Manning HGH deal, it's kind of saddening. I don't really believe it. It was reported by some schmo out in Colorado and by Al Jazeera America, like the sketchiest news organization imaginable that's not the Huffington Post. And so, because you guys know how I feel about the Huffington Post. And so I think it's a shame. I believe Peyton. I don't think that he did it. I could be wrong. But, it's a shame that it's going to make this blight on his record because you're going to have idiots that every time somebody brings up Peyton Manning, oh, what about that idiot out in Colorado that was saying that he had HGH? I don't buy it. I really don't. I could be wrong, but I don't buy it.
Any closing thoughts for you, Rhett?
I mean, this is, in my opinion, the greatest time of the year. NFL playoffs going on, college football bowl season. You've got the NBA starting to heat up a little bit. You got college basketball heating up. And not everyone likes this, but I'm a hockey guy. I like watching hockey. So hockey's getting good. So this is like the best time of the year for sports aside from baseball season. So it's looking good right now for the sports world.
And your closing thoughts, Nate?
Did I say the Broncos and the Cardinals are going to make the Super Bowl? Silly me. Who cares? The Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Woo! Go Vikings! Yeah! That's all I have to say.
Skull.
And I'd just like to rub it in your guys' face that I won the Fantasy Football League this year.
At least I'm not last, so I don't have to ride through the car wash.
True.
I think it's Tim that gets
No,
to do that.
Cameron has to ride through
Cameron
the car.
does? He's not going to do that.
His signature is on the paper.
Cameron's a schmo.
Scoring 134 points in the Fantasy Football Finals. Go me. As always, thank you for tuning into our show, and we'll see you next week.